All right, today we are going to talk about the writing quadratic equation in a factored form. And this is going to be kind of doing what we were doing yesterday, but going a different direction. So first of all, the factored form is going to look like this. You will have y is equal to a. A can be any number. It can be positive or negative, depending on the graph that we have. And I will show you how to figure out a. And then x minus x1, x minus x2, and I am describing the x1 and x2 as our x-intercepts. So think about this. For example, yesterday we had an equation that was y is equal to x minus 2 in parentheses x minus 3, and then we were able to figure out what the zeros are. Today we'll have the zeros given, and then we will be able to figure out what the equation is. So let's look at the example. So example number 1. What we have is we have the graph, and this is a graph of a quadratic function. So I just want to remind everyone, this is a parabola, graph of a quadratic function, and it tells us that the x-intercepts are at -4, and then the other one is at 2. So what I do know is I do know that my x1 is going to be equal to -4, and my x2 is going to be equal to 2. So now, because this is asking me for a possible equation or possible quadratic function that goes through those points, not exactly the one I have right here, I am going to say y is equivalent to a. Then I will have x minus, it's always the negative sign in a formula. My x1 is -4. And then the other one is x minus 2. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this up a little bit. So what I'm going to have is y is equal to a, x plus 4, negative and negative gives me positive, and x minus 2. So this is not necessarily the graph of this particular parabola. This is any parabola that, depending on the a number, that would have the zeros at -4 and +2. So now we are going to talk about our specific parabola, and what we have is we have that the y-intercept is -16. So we know that because this is -16, the x-coordinate is equivalent to 0, and the y-coordinate is equivalent to -16. Now, this is how we are going to figure out what our a is. We will have to find one more point that definitely belongs to the given parabola. And again, for this particular one, we had the given information that the y-intercept is -16. Sometimes you will be asked to find a point that you definitely can read off of the graph. So now you know that this is your x and this is your y. When you plug it in into our function, so y is -16, a is what we want to find, x is 0, again x is 0. So notice in this equation the only unknown is a, and that is exactly what I want to find. A times 4 times -2. So I have -8a is equivalent to -16. I am going to divide both sides by -8. And a is equal to +2. Notice I figure out what my a is, and the equation in a factored form of this particular parabola that we had the given information for is going to be equal to 2x plus 4, x minus 2. So remember, the key in finding the a, so the key in finding that coefficient is to figure out another point that belongs to the graph, plug it in place of, so the first coordinate is going to go in place of x, the second one is going to go in place of y, and the only unknown that you will have in your equation is going to be a. All right, now you will also see examples that will look like example number 2, I am going to do A and C, and then you are going to go B and D as your assignment. So notice that you are writing a possible formula for the quadratic function in a factored form. And for this one, you have your x-intercepts at 0 and 3. So I am going to start with my formula. Keep in mind, it's always a minus sign. And now what I am going to do is I am going to keep A, x minus x1 is 0, and x minus x2 is 3. Now I could clean this one up a little bit. I'm going to write it right in here. A, I am going to keep x minus 3. Well, we know if we have 0, we don't need to write it down, but just to keep it clear, just so you see what is happening, you may as well. All right, and then the next one. Oh, and because this is any one, we will keep A. We did not have any other information about this parabola, so we do not have any way to figure out what A is. Let's take a look at this one. X-intercept is -5. Because it is a quadratic function, we know that we need to have a square. And we've talked about this already. If we know that there's one x-intercept at -5 and there's no other x-intercepts, that means that multiplicity is 2. So that means that -5, that x-intercept, happens twice. So x1 is equal to -5 and x2 is also equal to -5. My equation in a factored form is going to be A, x minus -5, x minus -5. I should put this in parentheses. And we can clean this up a little bit. Y is equal to A. X minus minus gives me +5. And because this expression happens twice, I can just say squared. All right. Take a look at this one again. This one is any quadratic function, so I am keeping A. We didn't have enough information to figure A out. Your assignment is to do B and D. And also, when you go on the second page, please do exercise 3 and exercise 4. Follow the examples that we did in class, or that I did right now, okay? Have fun with it.